Good day, students. I remain your regular biology teacher, Mr. Peripheral. Today we want to look at a very interesting topic, nervous coordination. So we want to go in and look at how your nervous coordination can regulate your entire body. In the course of these studies, we look at the brain, we look at the spinal cord, and every other part of the nervous system. So let's go to the classroom and do justice to this topic. Now let's begin with coordination, because you cannot understand nervous coordination without knowing the definition of coordination. Coordination is defined as a process by which different parts of an organism work together for proper effectiveness. You see the hand coming to work with the leg, the face, the head, every part of the body coming together for a single function. When such a thing happens, we said the body has coordinated. So when we talk of nervous coordination, we are looking at coordination that has to do with the nerve cells. So let us look at a chart that will give us a flow of what we are talking about. You cannot study nervous coordination without knowing the nervous system. The nervous system happens to be a system in the body that enhances everything about coordination. It works with nerves and synapses. So with the help of these nerves, impulses can be transferred from every part of the body. Now I'm going to give you a chart that summarizes everything you should know about the nervous system. The nervous system is the umbrella, and this umbrella gives rise to two main branches. And those two main branches are the central nervous system and the second branch is the peripheral nervous system. Now, the central nervous system is further divided into two subgroups. Those two groups they are very important organs, which include the brain and the spinal cord. Then we go to the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system, on the other hand, is further divided into two groups, where we have the somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. I'm going to explain further, just follow me as I go. Now the autonomic nervous system is further divided into two major groups again. This time we have what we call the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Now this is a chart that runs through the entire system called the nervous system. I'm going to start all over again. The nervous system is the umbrella of coordination. It is divided into two major groups, where we have the central nervous system and we have the peripheral nervous system. I said that the central nervous system is divided into two very vital organs. We have the brain and the spinal cord, while the peripheral has the somatic and autonomic nervous system. This autonomic nervous system is further split into two, where we have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Now let's take them one after the other. We are going to begin with the central nervous system. The central nervous system, from our chart, you should know that is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. Now we are going to take them one after the other. Let's start with the brain. The brain is a specialized organ. It's a wonderful organ to have, for one to have. A human without a brain is more or less immoral. If you don't have brain, you cannot coordinate. So you can see how important the brain is. Every vertebrate possesses a brain. Now the brain is divided into three parts. We have the forebrain, we have the midbrain, and we have the hindbrain. So these are the three categories. The brain is divided into these three categories. Before then, where is the brain located? The brain is located inside the skull. If you can cast your mind back to the second semester work, where we study supporting tissues, I told you that the supporting tissue is made up of the skull and other part of the bones. So the brain is being housed by the skull in an area called the cranium. So inside that cranium, the brain is divided into three segments. So let's start with the forebrain. The forebrain. The forebrain is divided into two major parts. The two major parts are include the cerebrum and the olfactory lobe. Then the brain equally has two minor parts. The two minor parts are the thalamic. You can call it thalamus for plural, for singular, thalamic for plural. Then we have the hypothalamic. Let me take that again. The brain is divided into three major parts: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. Then the forebrain on its own is divided into four parts, or two parts that has major and minor. The first two major parts include the cerebrum and the olfactory lobe, while the minor part is made up of thalamic and hypothalamic. We are going to take them one after the other. Let's look at the cerebrum. The cerebrum happens to be the largest part of the brain, the largest part of the forebrain. As a matter of fact, it's the largest part of the entire brain. This cerebrum is made up of two hemispheres. The cerebrum, being the largest part, is made up of two hemispheres, and these two hemispheres is known as right cerebral hemisphere and left cerebral hemisphere. So the largest part of the brain, being the cerebrum, is made up of is divided into two major parts. Now let me give you a sketch. Assuming this is the forebrain. In the front of the forebrain, you see two depressions. There's a depression like this. The whole of this is the cerebrum. And this cerebrum is divided into two. You can see the division produces a deep furrow at the center. So one of it is the right hemisphere, cerebral hemisphere, and the other is the left cerebral hemisphere. And this hemisphere is divided by this furrow. This furrow you are seeing is called median. It's called median corpuscle or colossum. So this deep furrow is called the medial colossum. So that medial colossum divides it into two equal parts. hemispheres, just as this. Now this is the forebrain. It's just a sketch. Later I'll give you a full diagram of the brain. I'm just using this for illustration. Now, assuming this is the furum that is called the medial corpuscle, these are the hemispheres. This is the left, depending on where you are looking at it from, left cerebral hemisphere. And this is the right cerebral hemisphere. Now, each of these hemispheres is divided into 4 different parts. Each of these hemispheres, that means the right cerebral hemisphere is divided into 4 parts. The left cerebral hemisphere is equally divided into 4 parts. So their names include, the one in front is known as the frontal. You call it the frontal lobe. The one next to it is known as the temporal lobe. The one next to the temporal is what we call the parietal. The parietal lobe. And the one at the extreme is known as the occipital. Occipital lobe. Let me take that again. We are looking at the cerebral hemisphere, or the cerebrum. I told you that the cerebrum is the largest part of the forebrain, and the cerebrum is divided into 2 hemispheres. The 2 hemispheres are the left and the right hemisphere, and these 2 hemispheres produces a deep furum known as the medial colossum. Now, each of these hemispheres is divided into 4 lobes. The first lobe here is the frontal lobe. We have the next one called the temporal lobe. We have the parietal lobe, and finally the occipital lobe. So all these lobes I have mentioned makes up the cerebral hemisphere. So we have them on the right, we equally have them on the left. Now, another point you should note about the hemisphere is that the hemisphere is divided into the outer and the inner portion. The outer portion of the hemisphere is known as the cortex, while the inner part of the hemisphere is called the white matter. Now I'm going to run through all we have done this afternoon. Let me take you back to where we started. I was telling you about coordination. That coordination has to do with the various parts of the body coming together for a single function. When all parts of the body come together for proper effectiveness, the eye coming together to meet with the nose, the ear, and the rest of the body parts to have a common goal. That is what we call coordination. Then we talk of nervous coordination. We are talking about coordination with the help of the nerves. So this is made possible through a system known as the nervous system. I quickly told you that the nervous system is made up of 2 giant umbrellas known as the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system, on the other hand, is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, while the peripheral nervous system is made up of the somatic and autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, on the other hand, is divided into 2 subgroups where we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. We now consider the central nervous system as a subtopic, taking the brain as a case study. I said the brain is the most specialized organ in the body. It is embedded inside the cranium of the skull. The brain is divided into 3 parts, where we have the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. So we are now looking at the forebrain. The forebrain is made up of 2 major parts and 2 minor parts. The 2 major parts are the cerebrum and the olfactory lobe, while the minor parts are the thalami and the hypothalami. Now we now pick one of the major parts being the cerebrum. I said the cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. It is made up of two hemispheres, the right and the left cerebral hemisphere. And this hemisphere is separated by a furrow. This furrow is known as the medial colossus. Each of the hemispheres is further divided into four lobes. We have the frontal, temporal, parental, and occipital lobe. It's on the left and is equally on the right. Now the cerebrum in totality is made up of an outer portion and an inner portion. The outer part of the cerebrum is called the cortex, while the inner part of the cerebrum is the white matter. We are going to stop here. In our part 2, I'll give you something to do and to ascertain the level of your understanding. So go through the words you have heard. If you have any problem, you can write to me via our website and there will be a feedback. Thank you very much.